Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Arroyo Seco reading for the Blue Book Press. And we've got 4 writers here right now, and we're hoping the 5th is able to attend. And so we, you know, Kevin's not here yet, but Kevin is a very frequent reader. So if you can't catch him here, you can catch him somewhere else. One of the best poets for my money coming out of Long Beach right now, coming out of anywhere, really. He's absolutely fantastic reader and great poet. But today we have 4 people. We have me and Ken Johnson, Kate Flannery, and Ranney Campbell. And we also have Thomas, who's the publisher of Arroyo Seco Press. And Thomas, I don't know if you want to talk at all, introduce the whole concept, what you're doing, what you're looking for in the future, what you're going to bring out, all that stuff.
You know, I like simplicity. So I was thinking, it'd be nice to have something with a, very basic cover. And, it doesn't have to be that long. I had a short collection of poems, about 8 poems, and I don't publish myself, but I put them together and I thought, oh, that looks nice. The format's a little smaller and the cover's simple. And then I thought, let's do 5 at a time. So I think Kevin was one of my first people that I was wanting to invite. And then I invited get together with John and Kate and Ken, and I threw that out to them. And then Ranney had thrown something my way too, so we talked them all into having me publish them.
It's what?
I'm going to mute you because we can hear you.
So that was basically it. Just something simple and something plain. I like the color. Call it a blue book.
That's great.
Very imaginative. Somebody thought of some educational thing too.
Yeah, that might be cause some flashbacks for some people. Since you gave us Ranney's name, why don't we start there? And Ranney, the story of your book is really interesting. I wonder if you could tell us how it came together, and then also read us for maybe 5-10 minutes.
Oh, I don't know if I can go that long. Let's see. I wasn't prepared to talk about how this happened. Go ahead. Let's not say most of it. Get the book. It's very reasonably priced, and then you can figure it out. Perhaps one thing I told Thomas at the end was, let's just not have a prologue and let the readers interpret it however they'd like. But I had okay, let's just say that this book, yes, done, is cut and compiled from emails. When Thomas first sent it to me, a mock-up, it said poems by Ranney Campbell, and I said, okay, those aren't poems and I didn't write them. So we had to go back and forth, and with the gentleman who wrote the emails for a while, until we figured out words by Stephen Schreiner and arrangement by Ranney Campbell. But what I will read, and this won't take 10 minutes. I don't know how many minutes I ate up there, but there is one poem I wrote. Good. I wrote it. Go for it. It's on page 1 with the little letter I. It's the prologue. Okay. Epilogue is what I meant to say before. This poem is called Flock. And it's to introduce the rest of the book, which is kind of I hope, a story. But here's Flock. The women have come one by one, unsolicited, compelled to tell me they know you so well. I stand mute mostly, but they defend any slight rise of eyebrow perceived as challenge, panic, offer proof of how they read you, of time spent I haven't. Assure me you are not what you seem. But I know what you do, heeding strategic adjustment to each their need. I see it. It leaves them desperate to own a piece, to hold it. And I never saw you more hostile than when I might have, and fiercely deny I do, and maybe I don't know. But I know there is a man in Spain who learned a way to raise geese to eat continuously without force feeding, turning livers into foie gras for him. Says if you hold a gosling in your hands, the act of concern will transfer from the oil of your palms, and it will know in that moment it is loved, then never will be free, is ruined for him. Because once they know they are cared for, will sense human possession and fly from his unrestrained gaggle, because only faithful misbelief in utter liberty allows him to induce geese to stay season after season against deep-seated adaptation, overeating themselves to their slaughter in gluttony. Want to do more? I don't know. Well, you know, I didn't write this, so, but I don't know. I don't want to. Okay, I'll just read one page of this. Rode home about 100 miles an hour, my fantasy of loving someone again, really caring for someone, back and forth kind of caring. I get you kind of caring. You get me, you dig me, don't you? But I'm all fantasy in my head about what's going to happen. Wanting, it's only something I want, always has been and will be, every man for himself. I don't know where it went or why. I don't really know love or want to feel it. You would have found out soon enough about me. It's too deep in you for me, bottomless, unlove and pain. So you got what you deserved. All this, all this, all this is what you are.
That's great. All right. Well, why don't we go to Kate, who's there in the same room right now. And Kate, maybe you could introduce your poems a little bit and read us some.
Yeah, I'll probably want to introduce them just by reading the introduction, which makes it easy. But I wanted to start off by saying Ranney is such a hard act to follow, and I've felt this at various poetry readings that we've been to together. But my work here, Northwest Passages, is really, as Tommy described it, a micro memoir. So it goes back to my time growing up in the Pacific Northwest and remembering those very, very rich days that were sometimes scarier than I realized at the time. Okay, so here's from the introduction. I grew up in the 1950s in a small logging town on the Columbia River near Mount St. Helens, surrounded by the green gatherings of fir trees and people who worked around them. I climbed trees and explored the forests and rivers around the mountains. There was mystery in children's lives then. There was also a sense of permanence that came directly from the place itself. Trees lasted, mountains lasted. Living went slowly, it went quietly. And the hard lessons we sometimes learned were simply carried home to be bandaged and wrapped. We played outside, not fully understanding that we were in a beautiful but sometimes unforgiving wild. And this first piece is called Before the Rain in a Western Red Cedar. Like my brothers before me, I am pliable at 9 years. I thread my way through the circling cedar branches, pulling up through the smallest spaces. Even from 60 feet high, I will not fall far if I lose a foothold or a handhold. My tree will catch me. As I twist my way to the top, the trunk thins and turns greener, and the scent of cedar oil covers my fingers along with sap and stain. I can see the full, rich gray of northwest clouds. Then I begin to rock and sway in the building wind, as I had seen my brothers do. There is nothing to stop the wind but me. and I take deep breaths of the cold mists that are coming. The next one, thank you. The next one I want to read is called To the Lake. I am 8 or 9 or 10 or 11, straddling my bike in the garage. I have been left behind again. Whippet thin, my older brothers can hop on their bicycles and can be half a mile away before I get on my pink, fat-tired bike. We ride in any northwest weather, mostly the wet kind. But there are days like this July day when the sun dazzles us and brings us out to the sidewalks and streets like worms after a rain. I know every alley in our small town, their edges filled with things to eat and smell, rhubarb, sweet peas, blackberries, and neighbors' fruit, which hangs heavily over the alley walls. Black gravel shoots up behind me as I speed past it all, trying to catch my brothers well into their marauding. They're racing toward the lake where the northern geese nest in the dark bulrushes, where I'm not supposed to go. And thank you. It's nice to have the audience right here. The last two, the first one is Evelyn and the Cedars. September is the most reliable weather month in the Pacific Northwest. Summer finally realizing what it is supposed to do. No more rain, only gold sunlight and high empty clouds. September is also the month of apples and Evelyn Warehouser, who lives next door beyond a tall cedar hedge. As we sit on our back porch, we can hear her brushing around beyond the trees, murmuring. Our mother tells us she drinks too much and has a tendency to wander. Our mother tells us that Evelyn wants to cut down the tall cedars, even though they are on our land. Our mother worries that Evelyn might buy a chainsaw one day, they go on sale in the fall, and start cutting. So we all pay attention to new sounds coming from next door. And in the mild mid-September afternoon of 1958, we sit on our back porch, eating our apples and looking over at the wall of cedars that keeps us hidden from Evelyn Warehouser, who wants to cut things down. And the last one is called Pumice Paths. I grew up at spending days and days and months and years at the foot of Mount St. Helens, a place that is still dear to my heart. This one's called Pumice Paths. In a glance, I see the pumice path leading down from the trail as I walk through the forest around the base of Mount St. Helens. It could take me on a racing journey to a place I haven't been before, and I have dropped behind my family as they move ahead under the canopy of fir, cedar, and hemlock. I start my slide amid the smell of conifer needles, ripe summer dirt, and cones. I crouch and clasp my small hands around my ankles, duck my head, and take off on the pumice path, formed by thousands of years of volcanic spewing down the side of the mountain's base. I hunker closer as a hard branch stretches across my way and slaps my face, but I keep my balance and steer my body as I hurtle down the white trail. The voices of my family have faded, moving in their own direction. I know the lake is somewhere below and wonder if I'll plow into it at the end. I wonder if my family, safe under the tall trees, will hear me when I fly into the water.
Yay!
I agree.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so thank you so much, Ranney and Kate. And I'm just following my screen around. So in that order, I am next. And so I wrote Days of Recent Divorce, and these are all dribbles and drabbles, which are short stories of exactly 50 or 100 words. Drabbles are 100, dribbles are 50. And I became friends with the editor of the Dribble Drabble Review, and they really intimidated me. I didn't know how to do them. So I did them by a suggestion he had, which was to write them as sonnets first. And so these all started off as sonnets, and then I edited them down into dribbles and drabbles. Anyway, they're triptychs about 3 people going through a divorce, mother, father, and a son, Tanya, Tim, and Taylor. And so they all follow a theme. So I'm just going to read one of the triptychs. And the triptych is called Wave and Crow. And this is Tanya stands before the waves, drunk. Tanya stands up to her waist, watching the waves come in, letting them wash over her, hoping they're sobering because she's supposed to call her son because her ex told her she should if she can do it clean. She's not high, but good and buzzed. When a big wave rolls in, she doesn't fight it, but lets it drag her towards shore and then back out, her head bobbing above the surface now and then. She closes her eyes, lets Poseidon decide if he wants to pull her out to sea, if today the gods will save her boy. And this is, that's the first of the triptych. And then the second is, on his divorce day, Tim lies down for a nap. Tim thinks of the ocean, of those days before his son came into the picture, when he and his ex would go out beyond the breakers, the waves rolling them whatever way the water wanted them to go. It was easy then. She wasn't the one who turned into their parent after Taylor was born. That was him. So he lies down, closes his eyes. The rhythmic calls of inland crows morph into waves, and Tanya's voice calls to him, begging him to play in the sea with her. He crashes through breakers, coming to her, laughing, splashing, weeping. And then this is their child, Taylor. And thank you. On the day of his parents' divorce, Taylor tries to understand what love is. The crows have hectored Taylor all morning in a language he will never understand. So he rummages the pantry until he finds peanuts in the shell. He lines them along the back porch, tosses a few into the air until the birds have seen where they are. He backs off to watch them swoop in. It takes him 5 minutes to pick up the offering, and he thinks there might be peace in his time. The weregeld paid. They hop joyfully in the backyard, friends now, and he understands the secret to earning love, for him at least, is transactional. There are, I think, 15 more of those triptychs. So thank you. And thank you, Thomas, so much. I appreciate somebody taking so much care with my work. And so in the rotation, the next is Ken Johnson.
Great. Thank you. And I too will start with a thank you for Tommy, who just allowed this chance to explore past and try and sort what some of it meant. Thanks, Tom. And for Kate for bearing with hearing them several times, and John for mentoring. Prologue. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Grove Work. And Grove Work is where I grew up. I grew up in a lemon ranch, Claremont, California. Claremont was downtown shops, a college complex, and a whole bunch of groves, and I was a grove kid. Prologue. Imagine a time and place before the era of spectacle, now lost moments where children could create monsters and villains of their own understanding, and their words were simpler and breathed magic. Fog. Thick fog has insinuated itself so deeply among the lemon trees that I wear my shoes and jacket. I fastened my best sword to my belt, the one made of new dowling Dad brought me yesterday from town. I may need head protection, so I trade my cowboy hat for a football helmet. Finally, it's time, and I'm about ready to go. The lemon trees wait in the mist for me, and I'm not sure yet which ones are the ships, the castles, or the dark monsters that lay silently, but I will find out. Properly outfitted and only a little afraid, I step out the back door, smelling the wet lemon leaves. I sneak quietly down the back steps my father made last summer from salvaged lumber, walk past the patio of broken concrete to the first row of trees, past the sludge pot, and draw my sword. I disappear into fog. The next is called Dogwood. On the way to the lake, Mom calls out to my father, "Oh, look, the dogwoods are in bloom. They're dancing." My father doesn't stop. He's home from the war, the sounds of artillery and moans of wounded in his aid station. He wants to keep us safe. She who left her art to teach and feed her child and wait for a husband she was afraid wouldn't come back, now yearns to live. She wants to fill vases. I sit between, confused by their talk, their uneasy mix of being together and apart, happy and not. They talk about work and raising me and practical stuff. I feel the tension and sense their pain, but once in a long time, when they don't know I'm watching, I see them turn on the music and dance.
I like that.
Go on. The bulldozers had only taken 2 days to uproot my grove and push the fallen trees into heaps of trunks, broken branches, downed lemons, and piles of leaves drying in the sun. Standpipes, smudge pots, outbuildings, and the wind machine were gone. Gone also was the line of locust trees sheltering the big oil drums and gasoline tanks, the work shed, the workers' shacks that we lived in. Gone was the brush to the east, the rock pile and reservoir in which our family and friends swam before patio barbecues. We stood in the middle of the 20-acre flattened war zone in the heat and glare, remembering the shade we had lost. Even the 15-foot rainbird sprinkler risers and water pipes were pulled up. The subdivisions were encroaching with asphalt streets and concrete driveways, their city kids and bareback yards. I'm going to do one more just for fun. This has to do with the ancient art of smudging, which some of you have no idea what I'm talking about, but it's heating the grove against the freeze.
Got out of school too. Really. I'm mute. Sorry, Ken.
No problem. Hot lead 2. 3 of the crew walk on each side of the fuel truck, gradually moving up and down between rows slowly enough not to have to stop. The first person opens the lower damper, exposing the burning fuel. The second thrusts the gas pump nozzle into the damper, squeezing the handle open, lifting the smudge pot while it first fiercely burns, careful not to let fire run up the hose. The third closes the lid and adjusts the air intake. Too much draft, and the pot will blow a 5-foot pillar of fire out the top, melt the stack, or explode. Too little, and the fire would go out. They let me work the hose nozzle. The first pot terrifies me. The second, 10, not so much. They smile white teeth through sooty faces. I begin to see it as a choreographed dance. I'm part of the crew now, a rowdy hot loader, a bringer of fire. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Ken. And finally, we have Kevin Ridgeway. So Kevin, I haven't seen you for a long time. Good to see you now.
I haven't seen you in a while. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Excellent. No, it's been a while. I know. You moved and it's good to see you. Yeah. I'm honored to read with you. I don't think we've ever read together. I've read for you, but not with you. So
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. So I'm honored to do that. And I'm honored to read with everyone. I've been doing a lot. I've been writing a lot. I've got this book to share, Laughing in the Face of Death. What I chose to do with this book was just short poems, just really short. I thought that Thomas would be the perfect person to do that with, since he's the master of that, in my opinion, in many ways, at least locally. I don't know. So I tried to take a stab at it, and I think that, well, we'll see what my efforts produced. Population control. It's getting crowded in the world. You can't even people watch anymore because too many people are already people watching you. Mom never got a boob job. She always said she was going to sue her employer for screwing her over and use her settlement to get herself a boob job. But the money from that lawsuit is now my inheritance in the wake of her demise. And I'm using that money to get myself a boob job. Ex-boy. I would always hide away from the world in dreams behind closed curtains. Television scrambling me into a box of wild cards. Holy night. She spoke of her dead father to me while I sat in the back seat of an Uber and I looked out at the dark Christmas Eve cemetery buried in snow. Hundreds of little crosses marking dead babies across the highway from a Savers thrift store. The same chain my dead mother dragged me in to go Christmas shopping. And I say a solemn prayer for her father, those babies, my mother, and us. Pest. A kid at my house asked me why I looked tired all the time. And I told him it was because of his youth. The day the music died. One time back in college, I started singing a song I'd written during an acid trip to my classmate Shelley, who told me not to quit my day job. I told her I didn't have one. She told me I needed to get one. I didn't listen to her, but I didn't listen to myself either, because even I can't remember the words to a failed song no one will ever hear again. Poster boy for Hillshire Farms. My portly roommate gazed at me from the reflection in his mirror when he asked me what I'd call his style, and I told him cheese and sausage. I was in the hospital one time, and I wanted to write some poetry, and all I had access to was a purple crayon. And I wrote an entire chapbook of poems in purple crayon, and I called it the Purple Crayon Poems. And it gave birth to another poem, Purple Crayons Forever. When they gave me my contraband back, it had half a purple crayon in there. I got home and changed shirts, felt something in the front pocket. It was the other half of the purple crayon. I'm going to do one more. It's called My People. A grave nobody visits, the misfits nobody talks to. Those are my people, dead or alive, the forgotten. Thank you. And thank you, Thomas R. Thomas, for being an amazing, amazing man, for publishing us all.
Well, I'm so grateful that you came, Kevin. I'm so grateful that everybody came. It's really wonderful working with y'all, and I'm grateful for the other writers as well. Tom, what's your next group of 5 coming out?
I have a few people I've offered to, so haven't gotten anything from them yet. So I'll either encourage them a little more or grab another group. Just a little bit more to say about this is when I first thought of it and presented it to everybody. Part of the idea was that, do you have something that you have that doesn't seem like it's enough maybe for most publications, or, it just seemed like it was hard to get it published. And I was surprised by the offering that we got. It was amazing that, and everything was already ready. Nobody was trying to rush and try to write something. Just about the two memoirs, I identified completely with those two because with Kate's, my wife and I lived up in Portland, Oregon area for 4 years. And so I totally identified with that. Was there when the mountain blew up. And she talks about Harry Truman, the man who lived at the foot of the mountain, and somebody that we knew about then and she knew.
Mhm.
And Ken, when I was 12, we moved to Laverne when orange groves were still there. So I had that memory, and that sparked so much memory of that. And it's just so wonderful to hear about, their growing up, and a time before even myself, or when I was first little. So that's something too, is maybe something some of you might think about if you have something that you just have kicking around. Like I said, I have about 8 poems of this one set of poems that seem that, I don't feel like writing more, but there don't seem to be enough to get published. But this is a perfect format for it. You can have something as short as 8 pages, and you can, it can be longer too, but it's kind of a fun way of doing it. And I was surprised too. I normally publish poetry. I've got fiction and memoir and poetry and whatever Ranney's is. I totally recognized Ranney's writing when I read it, though, even though it wasn't her writing it. I know her writing. Actually, I published another book for her before, and it certainly came out. So that was fun.
Great. Well, thank you so much, and thank you all for coming. And I hope you come to future readings.
Uh,
Yeah.